Shout out to the Cassandras, who refused to pander and told the candid answers the best that they can about Pandora's cancers, the pessimists, giving their testaments the best of it and the rest of it, left to sit solo because the less of it the average git has to hear, the better. Shout out to the soothsayers, late nights, sleep like pulling tooth prayers that the proof layers itself with each news day are the truth tellers. The courageous news yeller is more often a bruise getter than mood setter, wondering what's better, the loneliness or phoniness. Shout out to you, if you're not just sitting trying to fit in with a stiff grin while the earth caves in, or burns, or drowns. Cities and towns waiting around for the sound of a copter swooping down. You're finally found, we wish they'd say, as if help was on the way, but like the song by R.A. we played, they never came, and they will not. The Cassandras were not wrong, and it's been so long that some passed on, dead, gone, but their words live on. In every western red dawn, every displaced fawn now on a Midwest lawn, every eastern den sogged by the long con, the box is open and it's not closing. The toxic smoke and the barren rocks poking where there once was hope in a world unchanged. It will never be the same, but at least now you know whose name never played the game.
Hey everybody, welcome to the People's Voice Network. We have changed our name from Populous Voice Network to the People's Voice Network. And we have, if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe and hit that like button. And let's get started. Today we're going to be continuing our series on censorship. So we had a episode of censorship about 2 weeks ago where we went over fascism and, book burning in America. And since then, more shit has went down. Like we've had the banning of Russia Today, RT. We've had a lot of co-hosts and fellow internet and YouTube stars have their catalogs completely erased off of YouTube, Spotify, and we've had a lot going on. So I want to get started, but before I get started, I want to bring everybody in. I'm Z. You can catch me on Revolutionary Reader. It's been a while since we've had an episode. I have an episode in the works right now to finish up the series on the wretched of the earth. I'm going to pass it to my left, which is ADC.
Hey, it's ADC. Left, White, North going to be launching shortly. You can follow us at Angry Dad Canada on TikTok, at Left, White, North on Twitter, or you can follow our political side, ADC_AB Poli, where we're a registered third-party advertiser with Elections Alberta here in Canada, and Elections Alberta hate us and monitor us. So if you want some good tea, hot tea is shown a lot on that channel.
Luton?
Hey everybody, I'm Ludin. You can find me on Twitter at Ludin Shazo, or also on Twitch at Ludin Shazo for gameplay that's going to be coming up in the future. I'm also part of Professional Lapses here on PVN. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hello. Y'all will know me as Comrade K. I have that name both on Twitter and on TikTok of the same name. I'm here on the the People's Voice Network tonight to discuss censorship. Oh my God, that was bad. All right. You'll know me as we go further into this. I'm not good at introductions.
It's all right. And you can find him on Red Scares on Saturdays. Now, I guess we'll start off with Brianna Joy Gray did an episode of Bad Faith last week with Abby Martin, and she had over 600 of her episodes deleted from YouTube for her show Breaking the Set. She actually left RT a couple of years ago because originally when the Russiagate documents were coming out, she was named in that, and then she left, and she actually one of the reasons she left was because of Crimea and the way it was covered on, some people were covered at the station. So she said that she was not going to be standing with that. So she left as well. but she actually became a superstar overnight by the liberals because they were like, oh, you're standing up to Russia, blah, 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 blah. But she's actually like, no, y'all suck too. I know what you guys are doing. But she did an excellent interview with Brianna Joy Gray, and we're going to watch a tidbit from the interview. So, let's see.
And we know, based on the DNI report that came out, that that was the threat to the political establishment. It wasn't Putin propaganda, and it wasn't fake news. It was news that expressed grievances that the liberal establishment and neoconservative establishment wanted sanitized from our reality. They wanted to purge those voices. And so what you saw was an algorithmic censorship campaign taking root, where Google and a lot of these multinational corporations that control social media giants, they preemptively changed the algorithm, backpaged alternative media and independent news, where you just simply couldn't find things like the Real News Network, Truthdig, Truthout, all of these outlets that were essential sources for us, that were essentially cultivated and expanded in this egalitarian notion of the internet being a free-for-all. Anyone can use it. Anyone has the space and opportunity to be a competitor with corporate media. Well, that was all crushed in the wake of this DNI report, and they basically went on this huge crusade against fake news. But really what that was just news that wasn't folded into the corporate media apparatus, and they wanted to basically eliminate and purge any sort of news that goes against these foreign policy narratives that are dominant. And so once the algorithmic censorship took hold, you saw defense contractor funded think tanks like the Atlantic Council task themselves with fact checking on outlets like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and very insidiously deem what is and what is not reality. So essentially we had our reality curated for us by our tech overlords, and we didn't even know it was happening. And so all of this precipitated what we saw recently, Bree, which is in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, these same establishment figures that have been clamoring to finally shut down RT once and for all got their wish. And that's exactly what we saw happen. All of our archives were purged off YouTube, and RT America shuttered its doors, I expect as a result of sanctions.
Z, you're muted.
All right. Yeah. As she said, all of her, everything's been purged along with hers. We actually talked to Lee Camp from Redact the Night 2 Wednesdays ago, and we had an interview with him, and we talked to him about losing his show and the implications from RT America being gone, since that was like the only, as he would put it, there are people there he definitely disagree with, but at the same time, that's one of the only media sources that they weren't being told what to write, so they could write whatever they wanted to, whether it was against Russia, against America, anything like that. They weren't being censored on from their funders. So in the past, we saw Chris Hedges and Jesse Ventura, and these are actually like some of the biggest icons in America for anti-imperial voices were on RT because they couldn't get a job anywhere else because they'd been blacklisted from so many corporate news entities. But I'm going to pass it along. Let's start with Ludin.
The question?
Oh, the question is, so what do you think? I know it's been, did you expect it to ramp up this hard in the past couple weeks, like as far as the rhetoric and the rhetoric on fake news?
Actually, no. I kind of saw it coming, but I did not expect them to actually go this hard on silencing anybody who was for providing objective news on what was going on. Mm-hmm. And it's actually scary because now it's basically giving anybody the green light to just scrub anybody's work if they provide something that's trying to cover anything objectively, whether it agrees with the mainstream narrative or if it just rocks the boat even just a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, people were clamoring right before that. We saw that Joe Rogan thing, but that was Spotify, a private company who has the right to do whatever they like. Say what you want. They had legally, they do have the right to do what they want with their private content on their private platform. But this is literally been a case of the government going in, being like, take it down, take it down, take it down. So I'm gonna pass it to Comrade K.
Okay, so I've been waiting to say something along this about this for a while. So the internet is not safe. It never has been, and I'm not surprised about this at all. This imperial war game between the West and Russia, between NATO and China and Russia and whatever, has gotten to the point where our illusions of safety are slowly being torn down. In these new conflicts that we find ourselves in, the ruling classes of both the West and the East benefit in certain ways, right? I'm sure those Russian oligarchs, they're not so different from our oligarchs over here. We are almost no different from them. We may have different styles of doing the same things they do. And one of the things that we do exactly like them is clamp down on media. We may not do it as intensely as Russia is doing it right now, but we're still ramping it up, and that's fucking scary. The internet is not a safe place at all. It is mostly a free-for-all, at least that's what it started as. But as these companies, these entities, they grew in power, Facebook, Twitter, Google, YouTube, they became monoliths that basically run the internet at this point. And I follow a lot of historians on YouTube, and it was already bad before. A lot of them can't talk about certain historical events like the Second World War or whatnot, because YouTube doesn't like controversy or controversial topics on their website and stuff like that. But really, we know that it's just trying to censor historical context, especially from a left-wing perspective. However, I will say this. I will say this. The internet is not a public platform. It's not. We like to fool ourselves into thinking it is. It's not, because the government or these private corporations, whatever you want, just come in and order content to be censored at the behest of these oligarchs that we call entrepreneurs and the governments that serve them. And there is no due process. There is absolutely no due process. If those videos were deleted, who the hell is she going to go to? How can she appeal all those videos? She can't.
She can't. However, luckily, her mom loved it is an awesome mom, and every time the show came on, she recorded it. So she has all 600 episodes on CD from her mother.
Good. However, how many people have access to a mom like that? Not that many. And you know what? America can go ahead, and people who try to justify this kind of shit can go ahead and shit on RT all they want. I wasn't the biggest fan of RT myself, but I did understand that people who were against the West would go onto RT because they have no other fucking platforms to get onto. RT was kind of like the Fox News of Russia, except a little less, absolute batshit nuts. However, the United States wants to say that, we're doing this because we want to stop the spread of disinformation. Motherfucker, y'all's media is dominated by people like MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, constantly spreading misinformation, constantly perpetuating their own narratives during the culture war. If you're going to live by these standards that, we're going to shut down RT because of misinformation, great. Go after Fox next. Then go after CNN next. Oh, what's that? You're not going to fucking do it because those networks are literally the platforms, the tools that you're using to facilitate your own imperialist agenda? Oh, of course not. Why would I expect any fucking different? It's just a sick game. They can't justify this shit anymore. All you have to do is think a little bit about their own justification for doing this, and then think on a grander scale as to why hasn't this been done, then why hasn't this been done yet? I'll tell you why. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. It doesn't, I'm not going to say that news outlets, whether they be independent or whatever, big corporate ones. I'm not going to say that all of them are great. Most of them are shit. But the government and the private corporations that basically run the internet at this point, they do not make these decisions based on ethics at all. They make these decisions based on what is good for the profits of the company, because all these big companies are not nationalized. They are not owned by their workers. They are run by a few greedy fucks who also control the U.S. government, right? Which is why they can get the U.S. government to do anything they want. We could have a slightly better, honest space on the internet if these large monoliths were instead controlled by the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who work them every single day to keep the platforms functioning, instead of them being at the behest of a few greedy CEOs who just care about wanting to expand their pockets. Y'all remember when Facebook got in trouble for like the 900th millionth time, because as it turns out, they were totally fine with allowing right-wing propaganda to spread across the world if it meant more clicks for them. And it culminated in stuff like the Myanmar Civil War happening. But yeah, this is literally just all to expand the pockets of rich people. Sorry for going on too long.
It's okay. I totally agree with Comrade K on a number of his points. The one that I will go on though are Facebook is an absolute monster. They're awful. If you go back to the 2016 election and the Cambridge Analytica bullshit that went on, and how Russia and Eastern countries influenced the U.S. election. I mean, how did Trump get elected? Because of the fact that they basically kept all the hillbillies on Facebook full of Hillary's a crook, crooked Hillary. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's a crook. Now she owns Black Lives Matter. Regardless, the whole point is though, our biggest obstacle right now and our biggest enemy are the people that pretend they're nice, that play nice on social media. That's the biggest enemy, because those assholes are centrist. And what they'll do is they'll ignore the right-wing, very dangerous and homophobic and racist behaviors of that lunatic fringe, which isn't a fringe anymore. That's the most frightening part, is the fact that these people are growing. Yes, our global majority is people of ethnic diversity, Black, Brown, and Indigenous. However, those voices, I mean, you guys, I'm talking directly to you. Your voices, I try my damnedest to amplify the global majority, because I've got white privilege, and that's my goal in life, is to help amplify the voices of the voiceless. But the biggest thing is the fact that even those people of the global majority are buying into the patriarchy bullshit and buying into capitalism. Everyone is like, the problem we have is we have a whitewashed history. So when people are looking at history, it is whitewashed. If you guys haven't seen, I will totally suggest. It's on History TV here in Canada, probably available somewhere, but it's the BLK, Black History in Canada. And I had no idea some of the stuff that went on. The fact that there was the slave owners in Canada treated the slaves so badly that they escaped to the U.S. to other slave nations because they were treated more poorly than they were in the United States. That narrative's never talked about. Canada's the nice country. And the more that we peel that onion of our history, the more we see it's a rotten onion. It fucking stinks. And we need to just accept it. Like, right now, the only way, someone asked about how do we start a revolution. But we're not going to talk about starting a revolution here. You guys can choose to take our words and go revolution, but we're not suggesting you start a revolution. However, the first steps that we need to take is we need to re-educate people and have people understand that the shit that's being taught to us in schools, regardless if it's public school, private school, whatever, it's all bullshit. It's whitewashed bullshit that capitalism wins and communism and socialism is the enemy. I mean, tell me that I'm wrong or prove me wrong. that more people are being hammered as enemies, as supporters of Marxism, socialism, communism, than anyone's even talking about the god-awful fascism that is openly happening in Canada, in the United States, and, well, in the Ukraine. So that's my point there, is the fact that our biggest, sorry, I went on a tangent here. We're going to go for time here. Our biggest issue right now is the influencers that can get people to watch their narrative and believe their stuff because they play nice. And yes, did I see this coming? Absolutely. We see the FBI, we see the Canadian government, they're all trying to shut down extremism, but it's on both sides. And ultimately, what they're trying to do is shut down anything that's anti-establishment.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's completely true. And I'm gonna push back on one thing I heard. I don't think that RT was so much as a Fox News as so much as there were people on there that there were people on RT who were batshit crazy. Yes. However, you wouldn't find a Chris Hedges or like a elite camp on any CNN or acting they're like left any NBC. They in my opinion, especially being here, like when you just look at like they literally are just like blue MAGA, and they started. And yes, like I said, I mean, fucking William Shatner was on RT, and he's a right wing asshole. But but just having those few voices on out there in the Western world who weren't like being given off a script to just to say what the news is, say that the Pentagon said it, so it's cool. Say that, a company, we need to trust the benevolence of a company that just gave us their data without actually going in and seeing the actual results of things. So it was a fresh perspective to see that from things. And I wouldn't have suggested the whole catalog of the of the channel itself. So, I'm sorry. It's been a minute since I've gotten to like host and stuff like that, so I'm like I'm a little bit everywhere. What I wanted to move into was the next art. I have an article speaking of because I want to piggyback off something that Comrade K said. Also, you said that the way you were linking the fact about what's the difference between like NBC and it's not it being state media and RT, who's blatantly says that they're state media, and you have the corporations acting like it's a public-owned thing, even though they're the ones in charge in the first place. So what's the difference? It's like, do you want your corporate state-owned media, or you just want to be like straight up, hey, we're doing what we're doing? So one thing I was
would you like anthrax or ricin?
Exactly. Now going on the censorship thing, we have Ofcom, who is the pretty much the equivalent of the FCC in the United States. So they do most of the broadcasting, and they have actually gone into a investigation for RT, and they have 15. They said they had 15 investigations pending, which I think that if you're going to be like doing that to RT, you got to look at BBC too, because it's not like BBC isn't pushing out some shit. I see shit from BBC every day where I'm just like, So I think the thing that's been getting to me the most are the double standards. Like, you can't live in a fair world if you don't hold yourself to account to the same things you're holding others to account of. And it's just hypocrisy. Like, George Bush is like, this man's a war criminal. Yes, Putin may be a war criminal, but you are too a war criminal. So shut the fuck up and take a seat. So I think that's my biggest issue with this whole situation going on. The people who are coming out of the cracks to make themselves look good.
100%. It's the hypocrisy of everything. I think that's one of my biggest things that keeps me awake at night and makes me angry in the day is the hypocrisy of everything. Like, we just sit here and watch these people. I mean, we'll take CNN as an example. the fact that you've got someone who basically protected his brother from sexual abuse charges, taught him how to how to work the media so he didn't get caught and he didn't get caught up in everything.
And is that not funneling information? Like
absolutely,
making sure that you don't know the whole story, so people can't judge base their votes on like the right information. So they're like, oh, this guy's a good guy, and
then guys, we're so impartial.
And he brings in his buddy Don Lemon, the gay black man that CNN promotes all the time, and that's the way that they play it. And I'm just going, like, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, okay, man, really, you're a person of privilege. You piss me off because you've got more money than most people ever see, but you seem to be bringing on people to give them a voice. So let's see how you do that. And then he just got onto his high horse about this, that, and the other thing, and about the vaccines and all this shit. And I'm going, okay, so number one, you're just pushing the shit that the government's pushing. And everyone's saying about this whole argument about vaccines. I'm not going to say the word because we don't want the YouTube people to come after me, but it's that whole thing of we have this argument about rights and freedoms and whatever. I have no problem. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your fucking choice, but put on a fucking mask. If you're sick and you're in public, put on a fucking mask. That's all I ask. You can keep social distance and put on a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, fuck off, leave me alone if I'm wearing a mask. That's all I ask. I think the one thing that's missing and working with a charity, hopefully to do a fundraiser here in Alberta, dignity is a needed human right. I think that's what's fucking missing in society right now is we don't have dignity. So dignity for the people that are oppressed. When you come to why the hell are the people being welcomed to the Ukraine, even though they're fascist, racist, whatever? It's because they're white. Why aren't we showing the same dignity the African Americans, the African people that are stuck in the Ukraine? Why aren't we offering the same thing to Syria and Afghanistan? All the forgotten ones that we talked about 3 weeks ago. Another
censoring, like just a blackout. Like you don't even get any
exactly.
Type
of... And you've got that on that internet piece of there are companies. I know the CBC is one of them that won't say the word Palestine. They just keep saying Israel, and they won't say Palestinian, and they won't say Palestine.
Now,
and let
me pass it off to let me pass it off to Luden first, and then Comrade K, I'm gonna get to you. Luden, what did you have?
Okay. Yeah, so first things first, the whole Don Lemon thing, he does not speak for all gay black men, because you have one right here. And yeah, but the other thing is that, yeah, the double standards, especially with the whole African situation in Ukraine, like how the media is playing it off as, Ukraine is this good white, or is this good European country, there's no crime, they don't deserve all this. But at the turn of the hat, Palestine or the Middle East, they're terrorists, we can't bring them here, because who knows, if we bring them here, they'll start doing whatever it is that terrorists, quote unquote, are supposed to be doing, and we'll be unsafe.
The Peace Corps actually sent out a letter to Ukraine and all the Africans in Ukraine that they literally were affirming the fact that there was just like blatant racism happening, and if anything happens, and the people who are actually working and trying to help, like Peace Corps volunteers, it's like they have to watch out. They're like been told if anything happens, just take a step back and walk and just walk away from the situation. So it's just like, oh shit. Comrade K?
Now, I don't want to be one of those people and come off as one of those Orwellian fucks, but bear with me for like 30 seconds. If you read 1984, one of the things that you'll notice in the book or in the world is that when something happens that the government doesn't want you to know about, like let's say somebody says something that's anti-government, right? The government gets rid of them or shuts them down or whatnot, and everybody the next day forgets they ever existed. Like their name, who they were, everything just vanished. Their own parents even, right? Now, obviously, that's a really scary and, far off concept that can't really be achieved in today's world, but it can be emulated, right? And that is what I noticed here, because the Ukrainian refugee crisis has reached a point where 4 million people have fled Ukraine, right? One of the biggest humanitarian crises we've seen in Europe in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the media and the people in the West have reacted far differently to the Ukrainian people as they did the Syrian people during the Syrian civil war. And they were just debate after debate after debate after debate on how many refugees should we take? Should we take any at all? How should we treat them? Does Hungary have the right to close its borders and spray them with fire hoses and shit like that and basically treat these people like cattle and debate about their fucking right to live in peace while they're walking across Europe just trying to look for a home? And it disgusted me at the time. And we kept saying, oh, ISIS, they're going to bring ISIS insurgents. And it was nauseating to hear.
Are you old enough to remember the France Facebook background when but everyone was trying to be like, well, Africa got bombed the other day, but everybody just was like, I stand with France, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
What the
Stand with France? Like, are you kidding me? And then back to Ukraine really quick. Everyone is just treating these people so much better than they did the Syrians, which I'm not shitting on the Ukrainians and saying that they should be treated the same as the Syrians were. Fuck no, that'd be horrible. I want them all to receive the same amount of welcoming and good treatment and being let into countries when they have nowhere to go. And we've been talking about them in such a way where it's like, oh, we've literally heard people on television in Ukraine saying these people are civilized, they're white, they're you and me, and all this kind of stuff, blatantly racist shit, right? And I think to myself, why are our fears of far-right extremists suddenly quenched when it's a bunch of white people? Are we just going to act like Ukraine hasn't been completely fascistified? Are we just going to act like all those Romani aren't being tied to posts having their faces painted green and harassed? Are we just going to pretend that the entire former Soviet bloc is not one gigantic right-wing hellscape in a reactionary response to the communist past? Are we just going to pretend that if you're an LGBTQ person in the Slavic states, you can get fucked up around every single corner and no one will fucking fight for you? What makes these people so much different from the Syrians? The Syrians, the Middle Eastern societies are influenced by the same right-wing tendencies that the United States influences in countries like Ukraine, like Syria. It doesn't fucking matter, except the Syrians were brown and the Ukrainians were white. That is why you won't hear the media talking about all the black people being mistreated in Ukraine as they try to flee for their fucking lives. That's my take.
No, that's a beautiful take. That was awesome. that's exactly that's exactly what how you should be feeling about it, because it's like you said. Yes, I don't think all the Ukrainians are Nazis. No, so they should be getting the same. Both countries. And any other country that is being terrorized by an outside invader needs to be taken in with reverie and reverence. And there's no reason. I don't want to see black or white people, any type of person, getting mistreated. I think, and then you think to yourself, we've just caused 20 years. There's a statistic out: 6 million people we've killed from our war on terror. And it's like Yemen is getting the shit bun out of them every fucking day. It is the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world. There's 20 million out of the 30 million people in Yemen are in extreme poverty. And then you have over in Afghanistan, where we brought freedom to them, right? And what's going on with their freedom? You have people selling their kidneys to eat. And you have babies being born that are just going to die because of malnutrition. And then what is Joe Biden going to do? How is he not a war criminal? He goes and he freezes and blocks all of their money, $7 billion. That's all they have, $7 million. He takes it from them. And what does he do? He gives it to 9/11 victims. And Afghanistan has nothing to fucking do with 9/11. It was Saudi Arabia, who we're cool with, helping give them bombs for Yemen.
Remember when the U.S. had those migrants at their border that they were just hosing down and refusing, and now just a few years later, they're accepting Ukrainians from half a world away.
And people don't think, and like those, and exactly, you don't think those people who were shunned and the ones who survived and pushed away don't see that shit, and that doesn't breed radical. It's like, why are all these people getting radicalized? Well, I'm sorry, but if a bomb was dropping on your family, your people, and everything you ever fucking knew and loved, you would be radicalized too. So that's what I'll have to say about that. But moving on, it's just been getting to me. This whole, like, there's so many there's just so many like things going on with the Ukrainian situation has opened up a whole new like level of like distrust for like my like living here. Like for me, like there's things I'm just like, they do that every day. They shut down, and it's like there's just so many, and it's scary.
You're not wrong. That's the scariest part. You're not wrong. Like people say that oh well, we shouldn't be afraid. We're like conspiracy theorists. No, fuck. We're opening our eyes to realizing that there is so much abuse and murder happening on our soil every freaking day that's just gone away. We'll have that one story pop up, like we shared it earlier this weekend there, that our friends at CNN shared it, that poor young lady that got shot. Like, but you hear none of that shit. When Black Lives Matter was politically correct, or was you could use it as a political fodder, that's all we heard. That's all we saw. I know the shit's going down. I know that people are still protesting. They're still getting beat by the fucking police. The police are the worst war criminals out of everyone. And there's where the crux comes in. So why aren't we doing anything about the Ukraine? Why aren't we doing anything about the fascism? Because then we can fucking increase the funding for the police so they can beat the shit and kill the impoverished. Honestly, I swear to God, that's what people are trying to do. Anyone in power is trying to kill the people in poverty so they shut up and they can't fight back.
Did you guys hear that the NYPD is literally so fucking big that they're donating weapons and money and supplies to the militias in Ukraine? Did you guys hear about that?
Actually,
the Edmonton police are doing the same thing.
Why?
So it's not just New York.
Well,
Fuck, when you sit there and have a budget in Edmonton, Alberta, that has I don't know, like 3 million people, which is basically in the States is a nice big town. Anyway, 3 million people, and your police budget has a fucking war machine for $500,000 to go and break up events. I'm like, break up what events? Why the hell do you have a tank?
Like, there's no events when you see
there's
like,
no events,
especially when you saw like we saw all the protests like 2 years ago, and you like see all these like mechanized, like it's like, who are you going, like, are you trying to fight RoboCop? Are you trying, like, I don't know.
Wait a minute. If Edmonton is just sitting on a small arms military budget, why the hell did it? If our police are sitting on military style budgets, why the hell were they just sitting on their ass for 4 weeks while Canada was under siege by these right-wing truckers?
Exactly.
So they can get more funding. So they can play the game that we need more police because we're not safe. To beat the shit out of us because we're standing up against them. Honestly,
it's the money. It's the money. Fascism. There's no money in socialism for capitalism. Capitalism always is going to be like fascism. I can make way more money.
It's the exploitation of people and the land. Like it's
the monopoly of violence.
And it's being allowed because of the fact that we vote in these fucking morons that all they've known is politics. Their whole family are politicians. And how do they get into politics? Because they have money and they have power. It's like basically you're just giving your kids power and money. It's just being given when the guys die, the kids go and they'll take over. Why it's just a matter of time before Trump Jr. is the fucking president of the United States, because fucking the orange idiot is going to be dead.
Don't even joke.
Let me say this. Let me show you. Like we're supposed to be progressing here. We
Right.
South Carolina, where I live, we just passed our new bill that brings back the firing squad as part of execution.
What?
Yeah, there's places in Canada that are trying to get the death penalty reinforced. So we don't have the death penalty in Canada. Thank God that we don't have that, because how many innocent people have been put on death row based on bullshit evidence? I mean, you can watch Netflix and find that out. But we don't have that. But we've got a right-wing lunatic fringe that has the power and the wealth and whatever to try and push for this. And yeah, so we just sit here, and I just like try not to talk to my wife about anything, because she just goes, I can't. I just don't want to hear it anymore. I said, I swear, I don't want to tell you, but we've got too many ostriches in this country, and we're all going to be decimated because people just sit there on the fence and do nothing.
Yeah.
I wanted to share this with y'all. So apparently, Zelensky has signed a decree to combine the national channels of TV channels into one platform as a super channel. So let me see. Let's go over this real fast. Stop sharing. Slides. Share screen. Okay. Says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has signed a decree that combines all national TV channels into one platform, citing the importance of a unified information policy. Under martial law, his office said in a statement on Sunday, Ukrainian privately owned channels have hitherto continued to operate since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine on the 24th of February. The decree announcement made on the presidential website did not specify how quickly the new measure would come into force. So they're getting state media.
How is this any different from what Russia is fucking doing? And why?
Exactly.
Why aren't Americans calling this out? Because Americans will complain all the fucking time about their media, all the fucking time. And they'll complain about other countries' medias all the fucking time. They'll constantly complain about how China and Russia have state media, and you know, our media over here is trying to do the same thing and all that stuff. You'll see it from those fucking rednecks in the South who vote Republican every single fucking few years. And then you'll get to countries like Ukraine, which, yeah, okay, defend yourself from an imperial power, but don't become the imperial power, you shits. And it's very scary to see all of this progress. And because Ukraine is going through this war, because people are dying, because the conflict is horrible, and everyone in the West is showing sympathy for the people of Ukraine, we are using all the sympathy, all the tears, all of the, you know, emotional momentum that people are pouring out for Ukraine to mask the growing fascistic tendencies of the region. Like, okay, form Peace Corps in Ukraine to NH humanitarian effort back to Ukraine.
Sorry, I'm just looking. That's not.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Don't worry about
it. It's just like it's state media. You cannot argue otherwise. It's state media. You can't fight Russian state media with Ukrainian state media. Stop using state media. Just stop it.
Yeah. And there is something to be said, like in a world where you have both in tandem, but not when you just have one channel that is saying everything and telling you what's going on here. Because it's like, because every channel has a narrative. And so it's just like, how are you going to, like, if you can't you can only go to one channel. That literally is like dystopian as hell. So you can only just go to one channel and be like, okay, all right, Mr. Zelensky.
But isn't that like basically forming Big Brother?
Yeah, 100%.
Ukrainian Big Brother.
They're literally saying, "Oh, you can only watch what we approve of, and anything outside of this bubble, you just can't. And if we find out that you're watching it, we're going to find you, and you're going to go to jail."
Yeah, not
What I
the
fear is-
entertaining Big Brother on CBS, but like the actual Big Brother.
I just fear that, like, this is gonna. I mean, the censorship this is the beginning, and I mean, I'm hoping that it doesn't become even more centralized in that fashion.
Absolutely. So we have a question on the board there, and it's from Alex Suarez, and it's asking about Trudeau. So I'll take this one, as my knowledge on the Canadian Prime Minister is pretty good there. Heard one of Trudeau's ministers' grandfather was a Nazi, and she supported the fascists in Ukraine since 2014. Yes, that minister is actually the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, Chrystia Freeland, whose grandfather was a Nazi, and there's much documented evidence of her supporting the Ukrainian Nazis in documents, interviews, when she was a MP in Peace River, Alberta. You will also see there was a little bit of controversy with Ms. Freeland about 3 weeks ago when she did a photo op with some Ukrainian supporters, and there was actually a Nazi banner that she was holding in front of her. When someone gave her a heads up of what she was holding, they did a reshoot and got rid of that Nazi banner. The problem was there was a guy behind her with the same Nazi flag that was waving it on the new photo. So absolutely, our Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, supports the Nazi Ukrainians.
I definitely remember seeing that.
I wanted to answer another thing from Alex Forrest. Any act, I don't think sanctions should happen, because sanctions can end up killing more people than an actual hot war can. And sanctions are an act of war. And in Venezuela's case, Venezuela is not really a progressive government. Venezuela has done a lot of good things for the people, but they still are still in the capitalist, but we still consider in the capitalist sphere. One of the only reasons we had an issue with Venezuela is because they were one of the top producers of oil, and they were going to nationalize their oil, which was a great step to the left. But Maduro does still have his issues. But in fact, of sanctions, no support whatsoever for sanctions.
No, absolutely not. And then if we're talking about the one side of...
Thank you, Alex. Don't forget to thank you, Alex. Don't forget to subscribe.
Much appreciated, Alex. So back to that one-sided media that we talk about, where they got rid of RT. They want UT because they want Ukrainian television now. I find it very interesting, and I don't know if you guys follow this. They've actually had to go off. They were banned from Twitter, but they were basically a military news channel that is only available on certain social media sites. And they are getting direct information from the Russian government in regards to what's going on in the Ukraine. So when you see a story on one of the Western media channels, it says 500,000 or 5,000 Russians were killed in this, maybe they weren't the Russians that were killed. Like, we go back to the bombing of that theater, when they're talking about, the big story was that there was women and children that were held up there, and they were bombed by the Russians. And they actually got documents that it was the Ukrainians themselves, the Nazi militia, that blew it up from inside, and the people that were inside barely escaped. But we're never going to hear those stories. It's like some comrade's face, eyes are bulging.
If you have that information or those articles, I would like to see them so we can try to verify them, because that does sound interesting.
Absolutely. And so it's like, okay, you got to take all this information with a grain of salt. But when and last week Putin came out and someone did an actual translation and said this is actually him saying this, talking about the West being capitalists, and how can you support a government and leaders that are killing their own and letting their people die? I'm going, yes, okay, Putin has let his people die. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But he's speaking the truth. So I always look at it going, this is like pro wrestling. When you look at a heel, the best heel character is the guy who speaks the truth. So Putin is a massive heel in pro wrestling right now in this political landscape. And Biden is the old ass Hulk Hogan.
I just learned about heels and K-Fab, Fabe, and
all
that stuff.
And here comes Vladimir Putin with the steel chair.
Exactly. No shit. There was WrestleMania years ago. The character, his actual real name is Miro, but he was Rusev. And he was, when he first came into the WWE, he was from Russia. And they had big freaking Russian flag. And they talked about talking to Putin about coming in. Well, at the WrestleMania, he came in a fucking tank. He came to the ring waving the Russian flag, riding a fucking tank against John Cena and the U.S. And it was like Rocky,
awesome.
Rocky 3 or Rocky 4 all over again. And I'm just going, this is awesome. But the fact is that Putin is speaking the truth. When you say speaking truth to power, it's Vladimir fucking Putin that's speaking more truth than Joe Biden or Trudeau or any of these other fuckwads that are in power there. The only one that I will say that has never not spoken truth to power is the beautiful Prime Minister of New Zealand. If I could move to New Zealand, I'd fucking move right fucking now because she is fucking amazing and she has saved her fucking country and she saved her people and she cares about people and she cares about fucking actual democracy, not this bloody imperialism that is under the guise of democracy that we have in the Western nations.
Okay.
Yeah, I have just had a very, very scary ass thought, and bear with me for a sec. In 20 years from now, 30-ish years from now, which is around the same amount of time that the Afghanistan war took, we are going to see the former Soviet bloc look very, very different, and we're going to be horrified by it. Now, as somebody who loves dabbling in entertainment and animation and stuff like that, if you browse Reddit, you'll notice that in terms of entertainment, fascists have a very specific kind of flavor of entertainment they enjoy. They enjoy, for anyone who knows what I'm talking about, they enjoy aesthetics a lot. They enjoy the aesthetics of stuff like Warhammer 40K, Attack on Titan, Last Days of Europe. You will notice that a lot of the aesthetics of these entertainment things, these fictions, they have the same kind of stuff. A lot of nationalism, a lot of black uniforms, usually skulls with crossbones, nice caps, mech suits for some fucking reason, ethnic cleansings, people talking about strong men and, demonizing stuff like homosexuality or femininity, and women either being absent or being relegated to certain roles within these kinds of stories. Now, these are just stories.
Or super masculine women. Because the hyper masculinity seeps into all gender and every type of
or super masculine women who for some reason have swastikas tattooed on their nipples. That is not a fucking joke, by the way. Read the original Dark Knight series. But my point is, these aesthetics are not new. These aesthetics come from the old days of fascism in Nazi Germany. Fascists love to look good. Fascists love to seem strong. Fascists love nationalism.
You're so right. There is a literal fashion of fascism.
They love defending their countries. They love nationalism. They love talking about how strong they are. And when people start thirsting for Zelensky with the fact that he's just wearing a shirt and, he looks super strong, all of a sudden people are thirsting for him, even though just a couple of years ago, he was just a weird actor who became president. And we're funding groups like this, nationalist groups across the Slavic nations that are very increasingly far right. It scares me because we are literally putting money into the biggest fascist movement we have seen since the Second World War. This is not relegated to just Ukraine. This shit is all over the place. It's in fucking Serbia. It's in Moldova. I don't know if I pronounced the name right. It's in Poland especially. It's in Estonia. All these former Soviet nations, again, as a response to former communist rule. And what scares me even more about it is that all of it is going completely unnoticed. And in a few years' time, 20 years' time, when fascism, I'm making a prediction here, this is just my opinion, has fully taken hold of the former Soviet bloc, we're going to see a lot of death. We're going to act surprised, and we're going to see even more military intervention on behalf of the West, if NATO is still around by then, if it's even able to function. In last days of Europe specifically, it's scary because in that world, the Nazis defeat the Soviet Union and the communists are basically pushed to being a small fringe resistance movement. And the Nazi regime falls apart, but it splits into a bunch of smaller fascistic states. Ukraine, especially, and Russia are taken over by people who call themselves the Black Guard, certain battalions and stuff like that. And it's very much inspired by real-life Nazi groups. And it looks really fucking scary. So to end this point, if we do not wake up and see that funding far-right extremist nationalists to fight other right-wing extremist nationalists is not a fucking good idea, if we don't realize that this pattern just isn't working, we're going to have new fascist states on our hands in a good 20 years' time.
The shitty part about that is that we are in right-wing extremist country that have been very subtle about it, and they don't get loud about it until their hegemony is threatened. So up until now, we've been like, oh, far right over there, far right over here. But we're also looking in a mirror, and we never realize that shit because it's just like, holy shit. Like you said, we're funding Ukraine. We're funding far right governments all over the world. And we were trying to do it in Latin America, but thank God the people of Latin America are still, they resist. And I mean, Brazil fell to the right-wing plot. I mean, Bolsonaro, but even he's polling terribly now. The people hate him. But it's very scary, the funding of just right, even when you look into our the January 6th coup or whatever you want to call it, takeover, throwdown,
fundraiser for the police.
Exactly. Well, when you look into that, you see the connections to all these politicians and all these elites that are just been pumping money, paying for giant charter buses to come pick up people and take them to the Capitol, things like that.
Well, that was the most well-known judge, thanks to a pubic hair on a can of pop. His wife was the one who was behind all those buses and whatever. Last name Thomas.
Oh, let's say you mean Mr. who's in the hospital 2 days ago?
See,
He's actually in the hospital right now.
Okay, so maybe she poisoned him so he stays quiet.
Yeah,
but
people forget Joe Biden actually put him in as well.
There's way too Joe Biden is basically one of the biggest war criminals we have. If you look at the history of Biden, the guy was in politics for how much awful shit that went down that he basically was like Teflon that was never. Yes, I would agree. Especially with the guy with the buffalo head and whatever with the humping the flag.
QAnon shaman.
QAnon shaman.
The QAnon shaman. We actually had one of those idiots in Canada too. Morons. Point being,
hope to see at least if there are going to be. I hope to see at least one of those guys every time.
See, why can't we have a pride parade with taking over the Capitol or something? That would be fucking fun at least.
Because the people who would not like it are the ones who are actually just scared about their own sexuality.
The seriousness of the January 6th, though, it was an inside job. It was straight up. Mike Pence, if they were going to kill him, they would have fucking killed him. Someone gave him the heads up that he got fucked out of there before something was happening. And the fact is, how many of those pieces of crap from the Q-Trumplican party were talking about shit that, oh my God, he's going to come back. He's going to be, Biden didn't win. Who gives a shit? The elections are whatever. But
you have the trucker convoy. That was that was fun. That was funded by
Americans.
They're all exactly. It's all funded. It's all coming from the same right-wing extremists.
Check Ted Cruz's bank account. That's basically what we've got to do.
I think we can all agree and take away from this is that we need to form some far left militias right fucking away because Jesus Christ, this is getting scary.
Yeah, we can't win this one just based on voting the right person in or political. It's time the left need to actually stand up, and the centrists need to get the fuck out of the way, because the fact the centrists are what is stopping the left movement right now, because it's all about, oh, you have to be nice. Oh, don't swear. Don't use profanity. Be polite when you talk to politicians. Be polite. They're the leaders for fuck you.
And
These
before
pieces of shit stole their way
Exactly.
into these places. So I don't care if it's Biden, I don't care if it's Trudeau or whatever. You all fucking stole your way in based on how much money you have. Because the average person cannot win a seat in any sort of power position in any place in the Western world because of the fact that it's all bought and paid for by capitalism.
that mic drop on that one, that's so true. Well, before we wrap it up, what I wanted to say is, yeah, if we look from like the past, like, I don't know, 5-6 years, especially in like in the North American sphere, as far as censorship, and we can see anywhere we can see in the Western world. I mean, it starts with like Julian Assange and like Russiagate. Julian Assange is not even from America, and he's been extradited to America to face trial. That really was one of the red flags that was flaring. It took time to settle, and after it took time to settle, you started seeing them go after people like Stephen Donziger, and then you see, and then they start going, and then it just goes down the pipe until it gets to the least powerful of everybody. And once it comes for, it will most assuredly, if it comes for someone else, it's going to come for you too. So people need to start working together, and like we said, we need to start forming co-ops, militias, go shooting, go shoot your arrows, go practice self-defense, and teach one another and feed one another, because we're only going to get through this with one another.
We have to amplify each other's messages. We have to have the same fucking message. The time of thinking about ourselves is over. We need to think about everyone as a collective and as a co-op, and get rid of this capitalist bullshit that's killing people totally. And the only way we're going to get through it is if we all come together.
Great. But before we end it, I just wanted to say that I'm glad y'all came on tonight. I had a great time. I'm glad I haven't been on in a while, so I'm just I'm happy to be back. But it's getting rough out there. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. It's scary, and we, like I said, we have to find the wins where we can. And right now, tonight was a win. I mean, fuck, I honestly believe there was some karma there that was keeping us off, because no one really wanted to hear this shit. Because the people that really want to hear it, or the people that really want to hear it, they don't want them to hear it, because they don't want people to actually be educated. One last thing, though, is I don't know if this is scary or not, but is it wrong to hope for the win of China? Because China seems to be our only saving grace. Because, hey, we all are on TikTok.
China, I don't trust, as far as governments, don't trust them.
Yeah,
now,
okay.
But I will say, a lot of the people do seem to have their heads on straight about a lot of things. But
their poverty, they actually wiped out like some of their poverty, and they had the plan. They started with the poorest people first, and then moving their way up. Learning from the fact that if you give someone who's just a step down from you a helping hand, that bastard's not going to help the other person behind them. They're usually just going to take their way and go. Where you help the people that really need it, that are dire needs first, and then we build everything up from there. So if you would have told me 20 years ago, I would have been on a freaking, number one, thought I'd be streaming something, number one, that wasn't in my head. But number two, that I would actually be cheering for China and having protests. Hey, we're all communists. So if China wants to be communist and red, I'm all for it.
There's some nuance there that we could definitely get into for another day, because in terms of, capitalism and communism and discussing China and its role to play in the future and its history,
there are things, but at the same time, there are other things. So it's just kind of like
I just see more good there right now than I'm seeing good here. But I mean, that could just be because they're a state media and that's all we get.
Because it's not hard to run a country better than the United States. That's not.
I was about to say, when the bar is this low, like, Yeah, our bar is just so bad. Like, there's when you see that some countries have, like Singapore have like 90% home ownership, then you look at here, which makes all the wealth pretty much in the world, and there's 25 houses to each homeless person, then we have a problem. So there's a like it's not hard to run a country harder than the US, and I feel as though even if we got people who were never in office like ourselves, we could if people like us just took over, it'd go a lot better than the fucking clowns that are fucking running it right now.
Agreed.
It's like, can people just have food and things they need, and then we can go from there?
That's the start, is to make sure we feed everyone is fed and has, like, food and shelter should be a number one fucking priority. Fuck bringing the Ukrainians in, fuck the war, fuck everything. Just start feeding the poor and housing the houseless, and that would be a start. I mean, I'm all for universal benefit. Like, universal basic income should be a fucking minimum from every one of these worthless piece of shit politicians. That's the first. If you don't want us to revolt, and I'm telling people, okay, don't revolt, don't listen to me, whatever. Fuck, I'm crazy. I'm like our friend Ugobnik and all that stuff from the deprogram. But fuck, seriously, if you are rich and you're watching this, fucking be aware, because people are going to just get fucking tired of having nothing and fighting for their lives, and there's not going to be enough fucking castles for you to lock yourself into before people are going to fucking take what they need, and you might be left with something. But if you want to come and see, because history is going to be written, and you're either going to be on the right side of the ledger or with the left of us. And if you're with the left of us, you probably will be safe, and we can build a better world. If you're on that right side of the ledger, fuck, may the odds be in your favor.
All right. Well, before we go, I'm gonna put it. We're gonna have a final. I think Comrade K want to do a final take.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and just say the obligatory follow me on Twitter and follow me on Twitter and TikTok of the same name that you see right there, if you want to hear me babble on even more about this kind of stuff. But more importantly, anything.
Don't like his art.
Yeah. I make pretty good art. I'm taking random requests. I might get to yours. I may not. It depends on how good I am. But anyway, before I go for tonight, I will leave all y'all with a little bit of homework. Look up the Azov Battalion and all the other right-wing militia groups in Ukraine. Just take a look at them. Look at their rhetoric. Look at the things that they say. Look at how they act. Look at how they carry themselves. And then I want you to go on the internet again and look up the New Order, Last Days of Europe. It's a Hearts of Iron mod. It tells the story of how, an upgraded form of fascism spread across the Slavic world. And while it is a Hearts of Iron mod and it shouldn't be taken 100% seriously, it is very scary just how much of this shit is mirrored by the people we're claiming are helping the Ukrainian people. So everyone, if you're gonna go home with something, just look at that shit. It's really scary. I'm Comrade K. That's my end.
Luden?
As a parting word, I'm sorry, because I've been getting messages, but we are planning on having an event later next month for 420. We will be discussing cannabis legalization and a whole bunch of other related topics. So right now we're trying to get that set up. But that aside, you can always find me online at Ludenshazo, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm Z, and you can find me at Braylonwood W and at We Should Read. I do Revolutionary Reader, and I've been recently starting to a lot more interviews for People's Voice Network. So look out for those, and look out for our next Revolutionary Reader video. And ADC. Yeah,
ADC, Angry Dad Canada, as you can tell by the anger that we face here. At Left White North on Twitter, at Angry Dad Canada on TikTok. And yeah, we will be there. Follow us. Follow the People's Voice Network. New stuff is coming, and it's going to be exciting. And we're going to change the world.
Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and follow us on all of our other accounts. We're anywhere from Rumble to Odyssey and Instagram and all that good stuff. So y'all take it easy.